Welcome everybody to the kandatvday Day podcast, the show where me and my girlfriend show each other shows that the other has not seen before. I'm Adam Dutch, joined by Kayla.
Hi.
In today's episode, we're going to review At the Movies with Siskel and Ebert. And I picked this episode because it features one of Kayla's favorite films, Scream. And even though this podcast is in its infancy right now, we're going to do a horror-themed October month. She picked Scream the TV series for me, so I figured that we'd do the Scream movie review first. Now, Kayla, what is your history with Siskel and Ebert? Have you heard of them before, or at the movies, or seen any of these before?
I've never heard of them before.
At all?
Not at all.
Did you ever hear of the thumbs up, thumbs down review thing before?
Nope.
Okay, Siskel and Ebert were known for that. That was kind of their niche in this. And just a little history about the show. Siskel and Ebert were a popular movie review duo. Siskel worked for the Chicago Tribune, and Ebert worked for the Chicago Sun-Times. The show had various incarnations, starting with sneak previews that ran on PBS from 1975 to 1982, and in a similar title syndicated series from 1982 to 1986. After that, it became At the Movies, which ran from 1986 into 2011, so a very, very long run here. Anybody who grew up in the 80s and 90s knew Siskel and Ebert. They were very, very big at the time. Gene Siskel died in 1999, and there were multiple guests with Roger Ebert until Richard Ripper took over in 2000. Roger Ebert died in 2013. In the later years of the show, it was hosted by multiple guests and arguably lost its charm after Ebert left the show, which arguably led to the cancellation of the show. Now, Kayla, what did you think about the intro of the show?
It seemed very 90s.
I would say 80s. I mean, just some scenes that we saw here. It had Ebert typing on a typewriter, had Gene Siskel picking up newspapers. The music for this is kind of Weather Channel, that smooth jazz, jingle style that was really big at the time.
It was cute.
Yeah, and I've seen multiple introductions to the show. In the early 80s, they had Ebert going to get popcorn out of a vending machine at the movie theater. Even though this episode we're watching and reviewing today is from 1996 with Scream and Evita. And I mean, this was dated at the time, even for mid-90s status. You don't really see intros like this anymore at all, do you?
Not really, no.
Yeah, I mean, you're lucky to even get a TV intro nowadays. It seems like everything's just a title shot or a 10-second intro. But this was going on for at least 45 seconds, I think. And just a little more about Siskel and Ebert. They're widely referenced and known in pop culture, especially for things that happened the 80s and 90s. They were known for their different taste and sometimes had heated arguments and spats on the show, which added to the series' popularity. The show featured movies currently at the box office, as well as films coming out on home video market, and special shows revolving around award shows and recommendations and holiday gift ideas. They had shows about their top picks of the top films of the year and some of the worst films of the year. Now, Caleb, this being 1996, what do you think their pick for 1996, the best movie was?
Titanic? Did that
that's
come out?
That's 97.
97.
Next year. I'm actually going to look that up because I'm curious about 1997 now.
96. I don't know.
It was Fargo.
Never seen it.
Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Okay, have you seen the TV show? I don't know if that's based on that movie or not.
No.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen it either, but I remember it got really, really good reviews at the time. Okay, their top picks for 1997 are two movies I actually haven't heard of, or at least don't remember watching. Siskel picked The Ice Storm, and Ebert picked Eve's Bayou. Have you heard of those, Kayla?
I haven't heard of either of those.
Well, the funny thing is, the year after that, 1998, Siskel picked Babe, a Pig in the City. Do you believe that one?
I remember that one.
Yeah, they had a few things they agreed on, Schindler's List is on here, Hoop Dreams, which is a very well-known documentary, Goodfellas, Do the Right Thing, The Right Stuff, The Godfather were on there. So they had some agreements, but oftentimes disagreements. The show we're watching today, the first film that was reviewed was Evita. Now, Kayla, did you ever see this movie?
Nope, never heard of it.
Never, really?
I had Madonna and John Travolta are in
No, John
it?
Travolta. It's Antonio Banderas in it,
Oh,
and it's an
okay.
all singing movie. So it's kind of like an opera. A musical usually has musical numbers and some dialogue in between.
Hmm.
I remember when this movie came out, but I never saw it. What are some of your thoughts on it, Kayla?
I was wondering if people actually use this for like movie reviews or if it's just for entertainment purposes.
I think it's both. And I actually remember watching this show when it was on the air in the mid to late 90s. Like, so I was kind of on a later thing of it. I remember it came on like very early, syndicated, like 7 a.m. on some station. But I remember they
Hmm.
reviewed Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I like that one.
Oh, yeah, well, they ripped that movie apart. Like, I remember my mom was dragging me and like my siblings to the movie theater. I said, like, hey, Ebert gave us like a terrible review. And of course, we go to the theater, like, well, what the hell we just see here? This movie's terrible. I remember there was only one line in that movie that made me laugh, and it was when like the guys like that dog costume. He says like I'm sweating like a dog in a Chinese sweat shop or something like that.
I
Or
remember
yeah,
that.
Chinese restaurant.
I think we're going to watch that this Christmas.
Hopefully not. Yeah, and by the way, me and Kayla are planning to add some movies on this as well. Once we get done with some TV shows, we have the idea for. However, Kayla, I will admit this. I actually watch some of these Siskel and Ebert reviews online to this day every week. And it is entertainment value because I'm kind of looking at a historical thing. Yeah, they gave some bad reviews to some movies that are like really, really well known right now. They didn't like Silence of the Lambs, Unforgiven, Gladiator, some movies like that. Siskel only walked out of two movies. One was Maniac, which was like a horror film of the early 80s. And there was Black Sheep with Chris Farley. Did you ever see that movie?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I actually saw that one at theaters when it came out. Like when you're 13 years old as a male, it's funny, but nowadays, like I watched it last year with somebody and it was absolutely horrible. Ebert walked out of a movie called The Brown Bunny. Did you ever know that one?
Mm-mm.
Oh, you got a lot to catch up on.
Do I need to get up more?
Yeah, that has some like it was kind of a cult movie of the early 2000s. Like it was well known because he walked out of the movie saying it was one of the worst films he ever saw. And the director got on him because of that, but later he saw a recut and gave it a positive review. However, like the show was known for them like arguing at some points. They didn't do it too much in this episode, but there are times that they get down each other's throats and stuff. And there's some funny outtake footage just about where to find these episodes. The show is like very at the time because they're doing movies that came out. So it was never released on DVD. However, it does have a huge cult following online. There are plenty of users out there that uploaded episodes on various sites that you can check out. And many of them do have thousands of reviews. And again, it is popular for people to like go back on their favorite movie and see what Siskel and Ebert had to say about it. And just going down the list here about the movies that they mentioned in this episode, the first one was Evita. The second one was Beavis and Butthead. Then they do One Fine Day, My Fellow Americans, Scream, and then Ghost of Mississippi. Now, Kayla, how many of these have you actually seen?
One.
Oh, really? So just Scream.
Yeah, just Scream.
Okay.
I used to watch Beavis and Butthead, the TV show, but I never saw the movie Beavis and Butthead Do America.
It's in the same vibe. I was very, very surprised that they gave that movie 2 thumbs up because they usually like Beavis and Butthead, of course, was like the badass cartoon show of the 90s.
Hmm.
It was there for like a stupidity and like people hating it. However, the movie is very, very well written. Mike Judge, the creator of Beavis and Butthead, is very smart and like knows comedy. And Siskel mentions in this episode he's never seen the TV show, so I think that kind of helped him going into this thing. He gave it a modest recommendation. Ebert said he enjoyed it a lot and said it was like a satire, like the couch potato, and the satire was aimed at like against them and the stupidity. And of course, this movie came out a few years after Beavis and Butthead first aired, and it was the only feature film movie that they had. I can't remember what they did for South Park. You've seen South Park the movie, right?
No.
Okay, we have a lot to catch up on, like a lot. One Fine Day with Michelle Pfeiffer and George Clooney. I don't think I heard about this before I watched this episode.
I have heard of that movie, but I have not seen it.
I thought it was one of those. There's a lot of movies that they reviewed. Of course, the show was on for like 30 years. They're just forgotten with time. Like no one talks about them anymore. And they say it was like very, very bland and like very predictable. So movies like that just don't hang around that often.
Hmm.
Now, My Fellow Americans, it has a plot. I haven't seen this movie, but it's about some foreign presidents, and they say it had a really strong cast. Now, Jack Lemmon, do you remember this guy?
Mm-mm.
No, he died a few years ago. He was well known in a few like really big movies. They include Glengarry Glen Ross. He was in JFK. He was in Grumpy Old Men, and like he'd been an actor for decades prior to this, but they hated that movie as well. They said it was very, very poor. I don't hear anybody talk about this anymore either. Now, going on to your favorite, Gayla, Scream. What did you think of the review? They gave it 2 thumbs down.
I was very shocked that they gave it 2 thumbs down. It made me really sad.
Do
I
you,
don't
do
know.
you
I
get the
give it,
reasoning behind it?
well, kind of. One was saying that it was a slasher turned satire. One was saying that it just started out completely as a satire. But I just think it's like the ultimate 90s slasher movie.
You see, that movie came out at a time where like horror movies were dead. It, you had this like really gore and slasher craze of the 80s with like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street.
Hmm.
And I mean, by like 1991, 1992, those franchises were like in their sixth or seventh episode, and things that kind of died out for a while. So here comes Scream, where they're referencing all these like cliches. However, Roger Ebert did not have a very good reputation with horror movies. He often expressed that he hated them. He called them like dead teenager films. There's some pretty famous reviews, and there's a famous reviewer online called the Cinema Snob who based his entire show in the beginning off of Roger Ebert's review of a Friday the 13th movie, where he was like, "Hey, this guy's like really going this horror film that's like meant for entertainment. It's meant to have all these killings and things."
Hmm.
In this review, Siskel says that it starts as a slasher film and then like adds something, but it says it isn't fun. His attitude was like depressed after the 25-minute mark. And he smiled knowing what the film was saying, but couldn't get a good review. Ebert said it starts as a satire and did nothing else, and he found it a little offensive and didn't recommend. However, if they did review future movies, they didn't review every single movie that came out of the box theater. They were doing like the top ones or ones that they approved for the show. So I can't remember what they gave Scream 2 or Scream 3 at this point.
So was this a weekly show?
Yes.
Okay. Wow, they watched a lot of movies.
Oh yeah,
But
they
they were
thousands.
but every movie here was like pretty like every movie they did for this episode was pretty diverse.
Oh yeah,
There's a
that's
lot
another
of
thing I was going
different,
to touch
yeah.
on because like they always covered a comedy, a drama,
Hmm.
usually something that was like really hot at the time. So whatever came out that week that was a fresh release, they definitely did.
Hmm.
Now the next movie, Ghost of Mississippi. Have you heard of this film?
I've never heard of that one.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it. I remember taking some like legal classes. The film is about a lawyer a few decades ago defending someone over a racial issue. I remember them talking about it. I think I saw a few scenes of it, but I haven't really seen the whole movie. But they said it could have been a lot better than it needed to be. And usually they gave recommendations like that. They didn't just say, yeah, this film's amazing, the cast is strong, the writing's amazing, or this film's complete shit. But they also said, like, this is what could have been done better to improve on this. Again, these guys wrote movie reviews for like decades and
Hmm.
really had a strong grasp about film.
Well, hey, they gave it worse reviews than Scream. It was 2 thumbs down.
Wait, one recommended Gus Mississippi? I thought they both
Ghost
said
of
no.
Mississippi was 2 thumbs down. Scream was one up and one down.
Oh, so Ebert did give it 1 thumb up? Oh, no, they both had a scream.
What? It was 1 thumbs up, 1 thumbs down.
Okay, so we did just go back, and yes, Ebert actually did recommend the film, which is surprising.
Ha!
I think it's because it was a satire, and that's why he actually gave it that way. Had this been a normal like slasher film, he would have given it thumbs down. However, when he was talking about the review, it didn't seem like he was that into it. Did you get that vibe?
Well, they didn't say anything positive about it except that it was a slasher like turned satirical.
Have you ever seen any like old school trailers or on a box art of a VHS tape where it said like 2 thumbs up on it?
No.
Okay, they actually used them for like reviews and things and promotional things at one point in time. That's how well known this was in the pop culture.
I
However,
can't
I never remember seeing that in any horror movies.
I can't believe I've never heard of them.
I'm surprised as well. But again, like Gene Siskel's been dead for almost 20 years now, and
Hmm.
Ebert died a few years ago. It was a really big deal, but uh, Ebert had a very strong illness for a while. He needed like a speech box to talk in his last few years. So it had been quite some time since they've been on the air together. Now, do you remember how this episode ends?
It ended with them at the movies, and then it had like some ending scenes again with like the typewriters and stuff, and then it said something about seeing them or like going on the balcony or something. That confused me.
The balcony is closed.
Okay, the balcony is closed. That's it.
Yeah, that was their closing line. And just some trivia: when the show ended, they actually threw all those balcony seats in the trash. It was it's kind of common from some studios and production just to throw away props when that could have belonged in a museum. I mean, they have Julia Child's kitchen at the Smithsonian, and this show being on for decades, you figure they would have saved that of some sort. But Ebert posted about that years afterwards and said he was offended that they actually just destroy stuff. Now, Kayla, would you watch an episode of this again?
I would watch it about like specific things probably to see what they said about it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I do. Like, I watch movies basically and TV shows when I'm working in my office. I have two computers next to me, so I have something playing on the other one while I'm working on something just to have some background noise. And like, if I pick an older movie, like I got in the Terminator phase a few weeks ago. I was watching like the Lethal Weapon series, which I had never seen in its entirety, and I was just curious of what they had to say about it. And like, they definitely gave good reviews to Terminator 2, which is one of the best action films of all time, and the first Lethal Weapon. So it was interesting to say like the historical perspective of it, the historical perspective of it, and like they do movie reviews in these episodes that again are forgotten with time. Like I'll never hear about them, and who knows? I mean, they could have been just a limited release, put on VHS, and never made it DVD. I mean, that's very common. There are a lot of films made out there, but also it's very fun to go back the years prior. Like there's movie reviews on them online. They're reviewing like E.T. when it first came out, or Where's Last Ark. I mean, that's over 30 years ago right now. So I mean, yeah, you can look all day on YouTube with these armchair critics, kind of like me and Kayla, but they're doing it from my perspective. I like seeing like the top movie reviewers when the movie came out fresh,
Right.
and how things have changed. Like the special effects of those movies have definitely changed, and like some have held up over time. So that's always a fun thing. And like, Kayla, can you name like another very, very famous movie reviewer?
No, I honestly like never really pay attention to movie reviews or like TV show reviews. I like to form my own opinions.
Yeah, I mean, like Leonard Maltin was around for decades, and Rex Reed. There's a show I'm going to show you on a future podcast that's called The Critic. It centers around a movie critic, and Siskel Ebert actually guest stars on that. So that's going to be a fun episode. But nowadays, it seems like, yeah, a lot of people on YouTube are expressing things of nature, and they're discussing like old movies or things that come out recently. And like, I enjoy it because it's a discussion. It's meant to be analytical and things that can give you a fresh perspective on it.
I was very surprised because I told you I didn't know anything about them before. I was very surprised to find out that they were a lot older.
Oh yeah, they're in their 40s, 50s. Yeah, 50s at least by then.
Yeah, that was very surprising.
Point. Ebert actually went on a date with Oprah and was the one who said to her, "You need to go into syndication to make a lot of money." And of course, that's what happened. Yeah, but they were a very big deal back in the 80s and 90s. There were very rare instances where they liked the sequel more than the original. And I remember seeing one a few weeks ago. I can't remember what movie it was, but they definitely liked the sequel more than the first one.
In Scream, they're talking about originals versus sequels.
Yeah, I mean, Scream was one of those movies, and I mean, it gets worse when you get into like the complete parody epidemic that happened like late 90s or 2000s, like Scary Movie, Epic Movie, and also like really shitty ass parody movies. That actually led to the downfall, by the way, because early 90s, late 80s, you had some very, very strong parody movies. I mean, you can go back to the early 80s with Airplane, but you had Naked Gun. What's that one with like Charlie Sheen parodying action movies? Hot Shots,
Mm,
that's it. You ever see
never
that
seen
one?
it.
Okay.
I haven't seen Charlie Sheen in any movies.
Yeah, and I actually saw a review episode that's about him not getting booked anymore. So that's always fun. So next week, going along with this Scream thing, I'm gonna watch Scream, the TV series, and I have never heard of this at all before. Kayla, where'd you find this at?
It was on MTV. They have 2
Oh, that
seasons.
explains it. I stopped
Yeah.
watching MTV like 2000, 2001. However, going along with the horror TV shows, I'm gonna show you Freddy's Nightmares, the Nightmare on Elm Street TV show.
Wow, another thing I have not heard of.
Yeah, I'm trying to pick these like obscure 80s and 90s shows that are like fun to talk about. No one talks about them too much anymore. So yeah, we're gonna cover all bases. We're gonna do drama shows, horror shows, comedies. I'm gonna show the reality shows, game shows, anything that either one of us haven't seen. It's at Fairgrounds now to discuss. So please subscribe to us. If you have any questions, please email us. It's produced by Modulation Studios. And our tour email is kandatvday@gmail.com.